So how about desktops of AMD?
Yeah.
We discussed notebooks in another video, but again, I think we've got a broad range, haven't we?
Yeah, we've covered pretty much most form factors. So we've got our legendary tiny form factor with the M75Q Gen 2, and we've got the main small form factor as well, M75S, and also a tower, M75T. So, where you need that extra space, you've got that all the way up to tower.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but small form factor, tiny and tower, all the same build.
All the same build in
imaging drive.
Oh
drivers.
yeah, so yeah, in terms of sort of drivers packs, they'll use all the same one. So for manageability, it's really easy. Through our deployment card website as well, easy to get the drivers, easy to get the SCCM packages all set up nice.
I think that's really important for any sort of smaller business where they don't have an IT department, a cast of dozens kind of thing to actually make it easy to deploy and manage, particularly desktops, because they're more labor intensive to actually install, and you've got to actually make a desk visit and things. But I think it's absolutely key that if a business wants to standardize on one form factor, you're always going to get one user who comes along and says, well, I need this great big crate because I need to fill it full of cards. You don't want to then have to go away and create another build and look at another image. If you could effectively almost take the hard drive out of one, just pop it in the other, that's something that's going to keep sort of total cost of ownership down.
That's right, yeah, saves lots of time for IT suite teams and stuff. So yeah, definitely something they can do.
But for me, they're tiny. It's 11 years old now. 11 years old.
I can't believe it's been there.
Yeah, we invented that form factor. I remember actually trying to get on a plane with one and got stopped. It was in my hand luggage. What's that? I said, that's a desktop. And the staff at the airport, no, that's a desktop, pointing us a big nicotine yellow box that was sort of driving one of the security systems. And I had to insist that it was. And in the end, the only way I could get on the plane was if they let me connect it all up and turn it on, and then their monitor on the disused sort of security lane. They're like, wow, that's neat. And then everyone started going, I could do one of those under my telly at home. And one security guard started talking about how many movies he'd ripped on Plex and things like that. But, that was a game changer. And the fact we've got that in AMD as well, because you've obviously got a desktop that's very low power consumption with the technology from AMD. So for me, when you look at sort of office space, not exactly cheap, business rates, not exactly cheap. If you have a regular desktop, you're paying whatever the building says per square foot per year kind of thing. You're almost paying, how much that rent just for that desktop's taken up, never mind the power consumption.
Yeah.
So a desktop shouldn't define someone's workplace layout. Yeah. So to have a 1 litre desktop you can put on the back of a monitor, and I will come to tiny one in a minute, but not only have you got something that you're not paying rent for, but you've got something that's using very low power consumption.
Yeah.
And we can still drive multiple displays, lots of ports. Basically, all the minimum stuff we see on a tender for a desktop is in that tiny.
Can be covered. Yeah.
And it's even more palatable where, typically now when we look at sort of, the ways of working, that's a palatable device to have at home. If I'm not really mobile at all, or I need a desktop and a laptop, something that small hidden away is really key, and then when we get to the tiny in one, to have that modular all-in-one system, again, sustainable, upgradable.
Yeah, I love that about the tiny-in-one. The fact that the sustainability message around, while all-in-ones have their place, but the tiny-in-one solution is fantastic, because you can sweat out the assets on the monitor for a long period of time.
And people only swap them out when they go wrong, really.
Exactly.
Or unless you want to change your entire office. But mainly, people run a monitor till it goes pop.
Exactly, yeah, which can be many years, 10, 15 years.
Especially if they're Lenovo.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if they're maybe 20, 30 years for that.
I think there needs to be a little disclaimer in the But I mean, that's the thing. We get customers who say, I like the idea of the tiny, but I'm not going to swap out all my monitors just because you've got that. So we've got the brackets, got the sandwich mounts, that goes part of an arm and things like that. But ultimately, single power supply, single 13-amp socket, thin client, all the way up to
as well,
high-end stuff, all in that 1 litre chassis.
Especially space-saving places like call centres and stuff where they need as much space as they can get. Tiny in one, with the tiny in the back, perfect solution.
I was thinking even for someone who needs to work from home. Yeah. I've got a friend who works Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, off their kitchen worktop. Yeah. A small flat, they don't really want that computer there all weekend. He's more worried about putting his ice maker and his cocktail kit out. So on that Friday night, he pulls the lead out and he packs his desktop. Really important for mental well-being as well. He can turn off from work even in his small flat. For me, what I like about the Tiny is the fact that sort of R&D of shrinking form factors. You know, our small form factor is a lot smaller now with AMD, and our tower's a lot smaller, where they used to be 25, 27, 30 litres. You know, we're now down in the sort of 17 and sort of 19s and things. So, you know, they don't have to be that big as long as the cards fit in there.
That's right.
That's the key thing. But again, that commonality and some level of mil-spec durability as well, because we're finding desktops don't just go on a desk in a nice air-conditioned office. People need them in warehousing, distribution,
manufacturing,
factory processes.
That's right. Yeah,
and again, that Tiny, hide it out the way. Particularly, you know, when you look at how they class an SMB, there's lots of manufacturing companies. Someone says, well, they're SMB because they've only got a couple hundred seats, but they've got a lot of square footage of factory and industrial process, and it's getting more and more computerized. So yeah, it's no, I think key there, absolutely low power consumption, cost effective, no compromise. So what people are used to from other chipset manufacturers, again, we're at every level. I mentioned it before in another video, but some of our competitors put an AMD as that, there you go, if you need a cheap one, but we're there able to look at every level, aren't we?
Yeah, well, we're on that note though, where we have an advantage with desktop with AMD is that currently we're the only ones that are doing desktop with AMD as well. So it puts us in a good place as well.
Yeah, but that's it. If you're going to have AMD notebooks, you want to then look at your options for desktops as well.
That's
so
right.
you might as well be talking to Lenovo, because otherwise you are working with two different technologies.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then when we move on to workstations, we can't talk about desktop boxes without mentioning Threadripper Pro.
Threadripper Pro. Wow, it is a beast. I always tell a terrible joke, which no one laughs at most of my presentations.
Go on then, try me.
But, you know, no, well, it's not a punchline joke, but, you know, I just always compare it to the Incredible Hulk, because it is. It's absolutely incredible. The performance just smashes the competition. Threadripper Pro, 64 cores of power. You know, the cost of that as well versus the competition. You know, versus a dual processor, but being a single chip, it's, you know, a fraction of the cost, but, you know, smashes the charts in performance. They had to go across two different massive screens. I remember AMD when they presented it. It was so incredible. And in our P620, ThinkStation P620, we have that in there. It's such a amazing device.
Well, I remember two stories I heard. One was a leading Formula One team. We lent them one, and I think within a week they'd ordered dozens of them, because they were looking at budget cap wise as well. Bang for bucks, obviously very important in Formula One.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they were able to get more out of their spend with that than using any equivalent. And then one of the big architects firms as well, they borrowed one. I think it was 48 hours before they said, how many have you got, kind of thing. Yeah. So it just proves it, you know, in terms of, we could talk benchmarking and things like that all you like, and people could run benchmarking, but they put it in their environment, you know, designing an F1 car, designing a high-end building, and it was, yes, that, you know, it was instant, you know. I remember the architects firm saying they didn't even need to run benchmark. Everyone was seeing how quick it could do stuff. They used to have to go and do the old, right, I'll click render, I'll put the kettle on, I'll go and watch a Scorsese movie, I'll watch The Irishman or something, I'll come back, then I'll watch the 10 Commandments, that kind of thing. But now they're look at that kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well,
sequences have been shortened for dramatic purposes, I must say, but, you know.
Well, there's another example as well, a visual effects studio, you know, where there was a particular scene they tried out. It would take them 2 weeks to render versus, you know, with the competition CPU. The AMD one did it in less than 24 hours in comparison. So that kind of productivity they get back, you know, they get to do more shots. If they're not happy with something, they can come back to it. It's just such an incredible example to show how it can change someone's workflow as well. Yeah.
There was, I can't remember the advertising firm, and I should do because we did a case study with them, but they were doing the previs in a virtual environment using the P620. So they were able to just, and again, you know, you could look at a global advertising firm, but a lot of SMBs are the post-production houses, the specialist services, in particularly in corporate video, not just sort of broadcast and sort of mainstream movie business. You know, to have a crate that they can come along and be in a virtual environment with reference points and demonstrate that on a monitor, little wireless monitor, pan the camera virtually, have a look around. Director finds the best shots. That used to be a rack full of kit.
Yeah.
And now we've got one box that does it.
Yeah, that is so incredible, isn't it?
And again, trying to find that value, but as well, really good power efficiency, not much heat chucked out of it compared to, like you say, having to do that with a twin CPU device. So in terms of green credentials, it's not just the power consumption of the device, the amount of heat it chucks out. Then you've got all your air conditioning fighting to lower that room temperature back down, particularly some of these media places we know in their little sort of sweat boxes in Soho and stuff like that. The post-prod guys, they're not using as much electricity for the AC because the things aren't getting as hot. So, at every level, that AMD sort of, excuse me, at every level, that AMD, the thermals and power consumption, it has knock-on effects. And this one's a great positive as well.
Yeah, totally.
So we're going from that 1 litre tiny all the way up to that Threadripper Pro. So again, I know we mentioned it in the notebooks, but there really is something at every level, every form factor, and every need in that desktop environment. So that's amazing that we've got that broad portfolio.
I think it's a testament as well to how good AMD is. The fact that ThinkPad is and all our Think devices, everything is so important to us. We don't want to just put anything in those devices. The fact that we're putting that in there just is a testament to how good AMD is as well.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah.